and then you can start.
All right, thank you, Andrea. All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the New York Metropolitan Transportation Council's Program Finance and Administration Committee, or PFAC, meeting. I'm Lynn Weisskopf, representing New York State Department of Transportation Commissioner Marie-Therese Dominguez, and I'm also the chair of PFAC. This meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be posted on the NYMTC website within the next 2 weeks. Today's meeting is available by webinar as well as in person at the NYMTC offices located at 25 Beaver Street in Lower Manhattan. For the meeting audience who are on the webinar, your lines will be muted throughout the meeting, but you may add any comments into the chat pod, which is available and is being monitored by NYMTC staff. During the public participation section of the agenda, registered speakers will be called on in the order of their registration. Registered speakers who are participating via webinar will be called on and their lines unmuted for their remarks at the appropriate time. At this time, I'm going to begin with the roll call, and when I say your agency, I ask that each representative state your name and the NYMTC principal that you are representing. And I will start with the voting members, and I'm going to start with myself. I'm Lynn Weisskopf, representing the New York State Department of Transportation Commissioner Marie-Therese Dominguez. New York City Department of Transportation.
Yogesh Sangvi, representing Commissioner Idanis Rodriguez.
Thank you. New York City Department of City Planning.
Good morning. Jack Schmidt, representing City Planning Commission and Director of the Department, Daniel Gerlach.
Thank you. Metropolitan Transportation Authority.
Good morning. This is Julia Seltzer, representing MTA Chair Jana Lieber.
Okay. Nassau County.
Good morning. This is David Viana, representing County Executive Bruce Blakeman.
Thank you. Suffolk County.
This is Chris Chatterton. I'm representing County Executive Steve Ballone.
Rockland County.
Pat Gurdon, representing Rockland County Exec Ed Day.
Thank you. Putnam County.
Hello, this is John Tully, representing County Executive Mary Ellen Odell.
Thank you. And Westchester County.
Good morning. This is Kelly Sheehan, representing Westchester County Executive George Latimer.
Thank you. And now for the advisory members. Port Authority of New York and New Jersey.
Hi, this is Jay Sheffield, representing Executive Director Rick Cotton.
Thank you. New Jersey Transit. All right. North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority.
Hi, this is Melissa Hayes, representing our Executive Director, David Barrand.
Thank you. New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Okay, Federal Transit Administration.
Hi, Dan Moser, representing Region 2 Administrator Steve Goodman.
Thank you. Federal Highway Administration.
Todd Amati, representing New York Division Administrator Rick Markey.
Thank you. And United States Environmental Protection Agency.
Hi, this is Lily Black, representing our Regional Administrator, Lisa Garcia.
Thank you. Was anyone from New Jersey Transit or the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation able to join? Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. By my count and under our operating procedures, we do have a quorum for today's meeting. So moving on to our next agenda item, we'll now be given an overview of the updates to NYMTC's travel demand model. And Deborah Nelson of NYMTC staff is going to begin the presentation with the introductions of the presenters. Deb?
Great. Thank you, Lynn. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce both Lynn Tiss and Tom Rossi, who have been the leads in this effort. Lynn Tiss is a transportation analyst, senior transportation analyst here at NYMTC. She's been with NYMTC and NYSDOT for more than 30 years, and she's led the past two updates of NYMTC's travel demand model, and we're incredibly fortunate to have someone with Lynn's level of technical expertise as well as project management skills to lead this effort, and it really has led to the success of both the efforts. But one of the main things that's been a good success has been the partnership that we've formed with the consultant team, which has been led by Tom Rossi. Tom Rossi is a principal at Cambridge Systematics, and he has nearly 40 years of experience in travel demand modeling and transportation planning. In addition to the work he's been doing with us over the last several years, he also has led the development of activity-based models in many regions in the U.S. He's also a national expert that's relied upon by, USDOT, TRB, and others. So we are really very fortunate to have such a high caliber team with the NYMTC staff and Cambridge Systematics. So I look forward to hearing from Lynn and Tom. They're going to give us an update on the latest update, an update on the update for the New York best practice model. So I'm going to start with Lynn. Take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah, and good morning, everyone, and thank you all for attending. I'll be giving you an overview of our activity-based model, the New York best practice model, and the project. The first thing to note is that this was originally going to be a quick recalibration of the 2012 model, but ended up being a much more extensive calibration validation because we wanted to deliver a strong model that represented regional travel well. Next slide, please. Next one, thanks, Fiedel. Thank you. So what is a model? It's basically an analytical tool that provides important information to planners. It provides estimates of the impacts of transportation planning, projects, policies, and investments on travel demand. Now, the model won't predict the future because there's uncertainty associated with the input data that goes into them. And the model won't tell decision makers what alternative to choose, but it does provide some information that is valuable in guiding that decision. Next slide, please. So travel models are tools that create output, such as estimated travel speeds and volumes needed by planners to assist in planning analysis. They're created from input data, such as socio-demographic data, using a set of mathematical models. For the scenarios being analyzed, the input data represents the assumptions of that scenario. And the models do have parameters that must be estimated or otherwise obtained and then validated. Next slide. Now, this is just a quick schematic of how an activity-based model works. Socioeconomic data, namely NYMTC's most recent SED data set, is expanded to produce a synthetic population that represents everyone in the model region, including their age, gender, and household structure. The reason for this is that we don't have that data for every single person in the region. Next, the model estimates what activities each person will be doing, such as work, school, and shopping, and any travel needed to do that activity. After that, travel choices are simulated, including where you'll be doing that activity, the mode you'll be using to do it, such as will you take the bus, will you walk, or will you drive, and the time of day that activity will be done. Will it be done in the morning peak, for example, in the middle of the night, such as that. And then finally, that travel is assigned to routes on the highway and transit networks. Next slide, please. Now, activity-based models have advantages over the traditional four-step model. For example, they provide better representation of small but important travel segments like travel by children. They consider travel not as a goal in and of itself, but as a means to perform activities of different types in different places. And coordination of travel across the entire day is explicitly considered. This includes trip chaining. For example, will you be dropping off your dry cleaning before you go to work? And also travel within each household, such as will you need to drop your child off at daycare before you go to work? And then finally, ABMs allow us to estimate the impacts of transportation projects and policies and such on specific population segments. In other words, such as for equity analysis. Next slide, please. Now, activity-based models are currently the best practice in modeling travel in major urban areas, and NYMTC has had one for about 3 decades now. The reason for this is that ABMs allow us to simulate travel for each individual. They allow us to better assess the impacts of projects and policies on different segments of the population, and to assess the impact of technology changes such as electric vehicles. Now, NYMTC made the decision to adopt an ABM over 20 years ago, and now most major urban areas in the country have done so. This early adoption has allowed us to continually enhance and improve on our original activity-based model. Next slide, please. Now, although the NYMTC planning area only includes 10 counties, which are the 5 boroughs of New York City, Long Island, Westchester, Rockland, and Putnam counties, the model covers 28 counties to better capture regional travel. It covers 12 counties in New York State, 14 in New Jersey, and 2 in Connecticut. It's subdivided into over 5,400 traffic analysis zones, incorporates a population of over 22 million and almost 60 million daily trips. Next slide, please. Now, this update maintains many of the important goals of the base year 2012 model update, which was released in 2020. These include use of more robust modeling procedures and newly available data sources, increased collaboration with member agencies, and improved data for model validation. But beyond that, the 2019 release, which is expected to be released in December of 2022, next month, will have some improved features, including an improved simplified model structure and incorporation of transportation network travel and open road tolling. It also introduces the use of location-based service data, locus, for model validation. Overall, it's similar to the 2012 release in that It incorporates increased member agency involvement and training, which for the 2019 model will be conducted early next year, improve functionality and user interface. Now I'll turn it over to Tom Rossi to give you more details about the data updates and validation. Thank you.
Next slide, please. Could someone verify that you can hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and thank you, Lynn and Deb. So I'll just kind of quickly go through some of the updates that we did, some of the results that we have for the new 2019 base year model. And Lynn mentioned some of this. It's based on the latest official 2019 population and employment data, and also the transportation system as represented by the networks in the model for 2019. And of course, when we do forecasting, it uses the official information for those forecast years. We used a lot of updated data for 2019. This wasn't a complete restructuring of the model like it was for 2012. But of course, we need to update it to represent 2019. So that included things like traffic counts. One of the things we did for this update was to make sure that we used only real counts. There were some synthesized counts that had been available for 2012, and we wanted to make sure we used just actual counted volumes that were out there. We did use counts for 2019 and a couple of years before that. We didn't use any for 2020 for reasons that are probably obvious. And we have the same thing for the transit side of the model. We have ridership data for 2019 and also the most recent transit surveys conducted for the various transit operators. Some of those are not as recent as 2019, but they're within the previous few years. And as Lynn mentioned, we've introduced the location-based service data called Locus, which was used for model validation. This is something that wasn't really available prior to this update. It includes detailed information on origin destination patterns, and it's passively collected from people's mobile devices, so we don't have to worry about survey respondent error or bias that comes from responses to surveys. We also have specific information about time of day. We have some tour purpose information. We can infer where people work and go to school as well as where they live. And we also use this to update the component of the model that deals with visitors, meaning people who don't live in the 28-county region but are coming into the region and travel while they're there. There's a component of the model, and we can distinguish those people in the locus data. Next slide, please. Okay, and Lynn mentioned some of these things about the 28 counties. There are about 67,000 roadway segments in the model. It includes all of the major highway and transit modes that exist in the region, and also we model active transportation modes, specifically walking and bicycling, and also the access modes to transit. The original model built for 2012 was built from the household travel surveys and other data, and as I mentioned, we've updated it using 2019 data. Basically, we predict travel demand for 9 trip or activity purposes, 4 time periods: the morning and afternoon peak periods, the midday period between them, and the rest of the day, which is mostly at night. And we have all codable projects that are in the fiscally constrained RTP and TIP, and they're coded into the model as a build scenario. Next slide, please. So as Deb mentioned at the beginning, this was a true team effort, and as a consultant who's done this for, as Deb said, almost 40 years, this is one of the most rewarding efforts we've had in terms of working cooperatively with NYMTC. It's not a matter of we talk to them and tell them what we did every once in a while. We actually are communicating constantly. The NYMTC staff and their on-site contractors are a true part of the team, and it really has made this a much better modeling tool because obviously there's knowledge that only the regional travel and transportation experts can have. The consultant team was led by Cambridge Systematics. We had a number of consultants, both local to New York and national experts. And an important part of the process has been the Model Advisory Committee, which is many of the agencies that are represented on the PFAC. People, transportation agencies throughout the region. We've had several meetings with them, and we send them the key information to review. We've gotten some important comments and that have helped improve the models. I've mentioned some of the data already. I'll just touch on a couple of the things that I didn't mention yet. The General Transportation Feed Specification, or GTFS, was used to update all of the transit information to represent 2019. That's a national source that includes all of the major transit operators. So it's a very high percentage, 97-something% of all of the transit routes are in the GTFS, and so we got the information directly from there. It's based on information that the operators have on their routes and scheduling and so on. We did, create as part of the 2012 model a new user interface with reporting functions for key features, but all of the data is there in a database that, it can be gotten. And we did improve some of those reporting functions for the 2019 update. Next slide, please. So we had some goals for the 2019 update, and of course, some of that was just maintaining the goals of the previous update from 2012. Which included improved transparency and accessibility of the model, making it as little of a black box as possible. We know this model has to be complex to be able to simulate what goes on in transportation in this region, but we want to make it as accessible as possible. It does use the most robust and modern modeling procedures that are out there. And we've improved the network representation using some newly available data sources, GTFS being one of them. We spent a lot of time on a systematic comprehensive model validation approach. And again, we take advantage of the local knowledge of NYMTC staff and the partner agencies through the Model Advisory Committee. Next slide, please. For the 2019 update, we obviously, besides updating the results to be fairly recent, and we started this process in 2020 for the 2019 update. So 2019 was the most recent year we have available. Obviously, things have changed a lot since 2019, and I'll talk a little bit about how we can deal with that. But we need to have a base year for the model where we have a good set of travel information, and so 2019 was the most recent year available. We also tried to improve on some of the things. The 2012 model is a good model, but of course there are always things that can be improved, and some of the things that we tried to improve particularly had to do with transit. For example, improving how travel is simulated to get into the Manhattan CBD, particularly in the morning peak period. And again, input from the Model Advisory Committee was very helpful in identifying the things to focus on. And I mentioned we also wanted to continue to make the model easier to operate, both for NYMTC staff and anyone else who needs to run it that NYMTC provides the model to. So we did achieve these goals, and the model does represent travel well at the regional level, and we have validated the model for 2019, and we're doing some sensitivity testing on it now. Next slide, please. So just to quickly go through some of these items. As I mentioned, it's not a black box. Obviously, there are a lot of parts of the model that you kind of need to have specialized knowledge to know about, but we wanted to make it as accessible as possible. Everything that is everything other than the program TransCAD, which is one of the standard programs that's used for travel models. All agencies around the country have to use one of these standard packages that are proprietary. But everything else is either open source or owned by NYMTC. If we created it, basically we provided it to NYMTC as part of the project, and NYMTC is free to do with it whatever they like, including distributing it. We did make sure we stored the model results in databases so that if there are things people want to look at that aren't part of the standard reports, it just requires going into the database. But we do have customized reports so that not everything has to be created from scratch. Next slide, please. And I'll just say here that we use the most modern modeling procedures. There was some pretty cutting-edge research that was used to create the 2012 model, and those procedures are continuing to be used. But of course, we have to adapt it to this region. It's unique. This model was originally, this structure was originally implemented in Los Angeles, which is a very large region as New York, but as you can imagine, there are a lot of differences that we needed to make sure the model was able to deal with the way people travel in this region. Next slide. So I've already mentioned some of these items, so I won't go through them. I won't repeat myself, but we did use the most up-to-date data, both on traffic transit counts, the locus data, which was used to basically give us better information about OD patterns. The sample size is much larger than from surveys. Of course, the last household survey was done more than 10 years ago in the region, so this gives us a lot better handle on how people are traveling in 2019. Next slide, please. I certainly won't go through this slide. This is a basic diagram of how the model works. The inputs on the left and the green are the outputs on the right. And there are many components within that middle blue box, and there need to be because travel is complex in general, and it's very complex in this region. Next slide. So in terms of the validation, we did follow what we would say are industry standard procedures. Actually, I've been involved in helping to develop those procedures over the years, working with Federal Highway. And the first thing we did is develop a validation plan for this model that we followed before we started any validation, and indeed while we were developing the model. And one of the important parts of that plan is to validate every component of it, not just look at the end results, which are the results of many components that feed into it, but that looked at every component. All the results of checking the results of these components were reviewed by NYMTC, were sent to the Model Advisory Committee, and they reviewed it. And then, of course, we do look at the aggregate results because those are what's used in planning, like traffic volumes or transit ridership, mode shares, things like that. And we looked at those and looked to see where things may not represent travel well enough. And when that happened, we explored the reasons for that. We would compare it to our data sources like locus, like screenline traffic counts, and we made adjustments to the model parameters as appropriate so that we got better results. Next slide, please. And the purpose of model validation is not to just create an accurate representation of 2019, but it's to create a tool that reflects travel behavior in the region and how it can change. So we do, want to have a decent reflection of 2019, but the data we're comparing it to, of course, always has some errors in it. It's not perfect. It's based on samples. So some of the keys are examining the sensitivity of the model results to key variables such as travel time and cost and demographic changes, things we know will change over time so that when we're using the model for forecasting and planning, it'll produce results that are helpful to analyzing those scenarios. So the bottom line is validation is important to ensure that results are reasonable for required types of planning analyses in the region. Next slide, please. So this is just an example of some of the types of validation checks, but of course, as I said, we validated every component, so it would take, literally hundreds of slides to show all of the validation results. But generally, we're showing that we're representing travel well in the region, both in terms of aggregate, for the region and interregional travel. We also did transit comparisons, looking at station groups, types of service, and subregions. One of the things that's important to remember is that we have data from a whole bunch of different sources, and so it's not all entirely, they're not all consistent with one another. So we needed to use our best judgment to determine what was, what was the best representation of travel. Next slide, please. I think we're almost done. So what we have is a model that is a good tool to use. It's relatively easy to use for the people using it. It simulates regional travel well. It's ideal for analyses such as transportation conformity, which will be about the first thing that's used, the model's used for. It covers the different parts of the region, the different types of travel within the regions. We can also look at corridors and sub areas within the region. Next slide, please. And so here's some of the things that we can use the model for: regional planning, like long-range plans, conformity analysis, policy type analysis, such as pricing and tolling, and project-level analysis. Again, this is a regional model, so it's, projects with regional impacts are the ones that this model is best suited for. And next slide. And some other things that can be used for is transit planning, because we do have a good representation of transit in the region. If service has changed, we can see what the impacts are on transit demand and mode shares. And some of these last items under changing travel behavior, even though our base year is 2019, some of these things, like the model does specifically simulate working from home. And so we can actually, adjust the model parameters. We don't want to assume that people are going to work at home the same way they did in 2019. We all know that that's not true. A lot of us probably are working from home right now. And then we've also specifically in this update put in some of the technology-driven changes, such as open road tolling, which has already been, well along in the region, as well as the increased travel. If you think about the difference from 2012 to 2019 in services like Uber and Lyft, it's a tremendous change, and so we want to be able to capture that going forward. Next slide. So this is the last slide. And moving forward, the model is operational. It has been validated for the 2019 base year. NYMTC has reviewed it. The Model Advisory Committee is reviewing it, and they're still reviewing it, but they have already provided some comments. The sensitivity testing is underway, and the documentation should be ready next month. It is going to be used in the conformity analysis that's upcoming very soon. NYMTC will have the model available for use by others in early 2023, and they will also organize training to be conducted for any model users early next year. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you all for inviting me to present, and I guess I'll turn it back over.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Lynn. That was very informative. Do any of the members have any questions? We do have a couple minutes to ask questions of our presenters.
There are no questions in the chat right now.
Okay. Any questions from the members? I guess I just have one question, Tom, which is, it sounds like a tremendous amount of effort, and Lynn, that went into this. How frequently is the model updated? It sounds like the last one might have been 2012. Is it every, 5 years, every 7 years? I'm just wondering how frequently we go to this tremendous effort.
because NYMTC should certainly answer this, but I'll just say that the 2012 model was not completed till 2020. It wasn't started until 2016. It was a bigger update. So it was already getting a little long in the tooth by the time it was released. And so NYMTC immediately turned around to update it. So it really only took 2 years for that update. It certainly won't be 2 years going forward. And I know NYMTC wants to take advantage not only of new data that's going to be collected in the near future, but also the fact that we have a lot of changes in how people have traveled that we will want to account for in the next update. So I don't know if Lynn or Deb wants to add to that.
Yeah, this is Deb Nelson. I'll add to that. So we determine it based on, you know, the data that we have, and we also need to have, we cannot have a model with a base year that's more than 10 years old for the conformity. So in 2023, we could not use base year 2012, so that was part of the impetus. So what we'll be doing is, now that we have 2019, that gives us a little bit more wiggle room and breathing room. So we will determine, based on changes of data and that sort of thing, when we'll update it. Obviously, it's a big effort each time, so we really have to assess kind of the validity or what kind of changes in the model. We can do enhancements along the way as well, so we may end up doing modular type of enhancements. So stay tuned, but we are fortunate that this one would actually be valid for conformity through 2029. So that gives us a little bit of breathing room.
Thanks. Any other questions? All right. Thank you again. That was very interesting, very helpful. I guess we will, if there are no other questions, we'll move to the public participation portion of today's meeting. We will hear from registered speakers with any prepared remarks. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to give their remarks. We'll hear from these participants in the order they have registered, and we ask that all speakers limit their comments to transportation and planning related issues. And our first registered speaker is Murray Bowden, who is in the NYMTC office, I understand. So, Mr. Bowden, you may provide your remarks. Thank you.
Hi, Lynn. It's Jerry. Murray was here, but had to leave. Okay. He did ask me to just express that the concerns he raised at the last meeting are the same concerns, and he did leave a photograph of an area where he has those concerns with the pavement markings, which he asked that be shared with the member agencies, and we will do so.
Okay, thank you. Andrea, are there any other registered speakers?
No, they're not, Lynn.
Okay. Well, if there are no speakers, then we will move to the next item. All material related to these action items that we're going to deal with next have been posted on the NYMTC website, which for everybody is www.nymtic.org. And the first of these actions is to accept the September 22nd meeting synopsis. And I ask that all voting members announce your name and the agency you represent when you make or second a motion. May I have a motion to accept the September 22nd, 2022 meeting synopsis?
Hi, good afternoon. David Viana from Nassau County. I make a motion to accept the September 22nd, 2022 meeting synopsis.
Thank you, David. Do I have a second?
Second, Pat Gurdon, Rockland County.
Thank you, Pat. Does anyone object to the motion? Hearing no objections, the meeting synopsis is accepted. So thank you, everyone. The next action item is to adopt resolution number 552, the 2022 Title VI Non-Discrimination Program. And I'm going to now ask Jerry Bogatz of NYMTC to introduce this resolution.
Good afternoon, folks. So Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and subsequent federal legislation direct the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, disability, age, gender, or income status, in programs and activities receiving federal funds, including transportation funds. So Title VI and the Executive Order 12898 on environmental justice are integral to the metropolitan transportation planning process throughout the United States, particularly in urban regions. So the U.S. DOT requires public agencies, including metropolitan planning organizations like NYMTC, to develop Title VI programs that address how an agency or metropolitan planning organization integrates non-discrimination practices into the planning, public participation, and decision-making of its process. The FTA, the Federal Transit Administration, issued Circular C4702.18, which provided additional guidance on how Title VI programs are to be structured in MPOs. And using this guidance, NYMTC prepared its initial Title VI program, which PFAC adopted through resolution number 387 in September of 2014, and there was a subsequent update in 2018. So in conjunction with the adoption of its most recent Regional Transportation Plan and Congestion Management Process Status Report, NYMTC has developed the attached 2022 Title VI program, and when I say attached, it's attached to the resolution, to reflect new information from the plan and the status report and to update procedures and our language access operating procedures also, which are an appendix to the Title VI program. Staff requests that PFAC adopt this as the new Title VI program, non-discrimination program for NYMTC.
All right, thank you, Jerry. May I have a motion to adopt resolution number 552, 2022 Title VI Non-Discrimination Program?
I'd like to make a motion, Jack Schmidt, New York City Planning.
All right, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second, Westchester County, Kelly Sheehan.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this item?
Yes, this is Jay Sheffield at the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey. The program is a solid update on the policy. We're glad to see that. Also very happy to hear as part of the BPM update that there is potential to use the BPM for equity analysis. So forward to seeing that as a useful tool to advance the goals outlined in this overall and next long range.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion or comments on the plan? All right, I guess we can move forward with the roll call, and we're going to start with the Lower Hudson Valley. Putnam County?
Putnam County, aye.
Thank you. Rockland County?
Aye.
Thank you. Westchester County?
Aye.
And now moving to Long Island, Nassau County?
Aye.
Suffolk County?
Aye.
And New York City Department of Transportation?
Aye.
Thank you. New York City Department of City Planning?
Aye.
And finally, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority? I think I heard an aye there. And New York State Department of Transportation also votes aye. So thank you, everyone. Motion 552 has been passed. Okay, the next resolution item is to adopt resolution, I don't know, it says 552, but support of the statewide transit agency targets under the Federal Transportation Performance Management Requirements and related amendments. So I now ask that John Simpson of NYMTC staff introduce this resolution.
Thank you very much.
I think it's 553, actually.
Yes, the resolution is resolution number 553. Thank you very much, Lynn. In resolution 553 is to support the statewide targets for highway safety and the statewide and agency targets for transportation asset management and for public transit safety. A note on this in that we were able to get, due to extenuating circumstances, Suffolk County was unable to get us their transit asset management targets at this time. This has been I'm sure everyone has heard that they've been having difficulties with their network in the past few months. We've been in continual contact with Suffolk County, and we will follow up with supporting their targets as soon as they are able to access them again. We have received all the targets. We have reviewed all the targets, and NYMTC staff recommends the adoption of this measure to support all of the targets that have been that were sent out as part of a read ahead before this meeting. We recommend PFAC approve this motion.
All right, thank you, John. May I have a motion to adopt Resolution 553, support of statewide and transit agency targets under the Federal Transportation Performance Management requirements and related amendments?
Motion, Chris Chatterton, Suffolk County.
Thank you, Chris. Do I have a second for the motion?
Second, Pat Gurdon, Rockland County.
All right, thank you, Pat. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Okay, hearing none, we'll do a roll call, starting again with the Lower Hudson Valley. Putnam County.
Putnam County, aye.
Rockland County.
Aye.
Thank you. Westchester County.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving to Long Island, Nassau County.
Aye.
Suffolk County.
Aye.
And to New York City Department of Transportation.
Aye.
New York City Department of City Planning.
Aye.
Thank you. And finally, Metropolitan Transportation Authority. I'm not sure I heard an answer from the MTA. All right, well, the New York State Department of Transportation votes aye. So the motion will pass. The next action item is resolution number 554, amendments to the state fiscal year 2022-2023 Unified Planning Work Program. And I'll now ask Setu Allen of NYMTC staff to introduce this resolution.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So resolution number 554, amendments to the state fiscal year 2022 through 2023 work program. The New York City Department of Transportation is requesting to reprogram unspent funds from the state fiscal year 2021 through 2022 program and reprogram those funds to planning activities that are programmed in the current UPWP. No new funds are requested for these actions, and NYMTC staff request that you adopt this resolution.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to adopt resolution number 554, amendments to the state fiscal year 2022-2023 Unified Planning Work Program?
Motion, Kelly Sheehan, Westchester County.
Thank you, Kelly. Do I have a second?
Second, Jack Schmidt, New York City Planning.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Is there any discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none, we will do a roll call, starting with the Lower Hudson Valley. Putnam County.
Aye.
Rockland County.
Aye.
Thank you. Westchester County.
Aye.
Okay, moving to Long Island, Nassau County.
Aye.
Suffolk County.
Aye.
And New York City Department of Transportation.
Aye.
Thank you. New York City Department of City Planning.
Aye.
And Metropolitan Transportation Authority.
Aye. Can you hear me?
There we go. Now I heard you. Thank you. And the New York State Department of Transportation also votes aye. So thank you, everyone. The motion does pass. I think that is the end of our resolutions. So moving on to confirmation of the next PFAC meeting. The next PFAC meeting is scheduled for Thursday, February 9th, 2023 already. Wow. Details of this meeting will be made available 2 weeks prior to the meeting date. And also to confirm the annual meeting, NYMTC's annual council meeting is scheduled for Thursday, February 23rd, 2023, and details of this meeting will also be made available 2 weeks prior to the meeting date. And that brings us to the end of today's agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion, Pat Gurdon, Rockland County.
Thank you, Pat. Do I have a second?
Second, Chris Chatterton, Suffolk County.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone have any objections? All right, hearing none, thank you very much, everyone who was able to attend today's meeting, and the meeting is adjourned.